Hey everyone, my name is Lone Tran. I am currently a security assurance project manager at Amazon Web Services. So today's talk is going to be me just going through a personal journey of mine for those who may have similar background, or even if not similar background, I hope to offer some more insight and possibilities into the security professional world. So today's talk is Big Accounting to Big Tech, a perspective from an IT professional. Like I said, it's going to be a personal journey, so a lot of things are going to be from my perspective, and I hope to offer the right level of insight. So please feel free to ask me questions at the end, and I'll try my best to answer those questions if for some reason the talk itself doesn't offer you the insight that you need. All right, so again, my name is Lone Tran. I currently am a CPA and a CISA. I graduated from University of Maryland, College Park about 8 years ago, and my major was in information system and accounting. My interest going to school was more so in information system, but I wasn't particularly really good at it. So I added accounting as a backup because information system and accounting was a really popular double major combination due to the growth in IT systems used to support accounting functions. So when I graduated, I wanted a job that allowed me to utilize both of my majors. So I ended up in IT audit. So I was at Ernst & Young as an IT auditor for 5 years, and then I'm currently at Amazon Web Services as a security assurance project manager. I've been there for 2 years now. So right now, I basically am doing project management work in the ITIS field. So that's a little bit of a, transitioning into what of my interests are, even though I do have the accounting background and I have the CPA, I don't really utilize it as much anymore. Okay, so next is what is big accounting? So big four accounting firms, for those who don't know, are Deloitte, PricewaterhouseCoopers, or also known as PwC, Ernst & Young, also referred to as EY. And then for the fourth one, I am not going to even attempt to try and say this, but they are known as KPMG. So those are the main big accounting firms. Of course, depending on who you ask, that list may change because there's the fifth and sixth accounting firms that people think, depending on the year, it might move up in the list here, but those are the original big four accounting firms. So a lot of students who study accounting in college want to start out here because it gives you a very great foundational set of skills and stepping stone into the private sector. So when we go to the big four accounting firms, we refer to that as public accounting. Public accounting gives you the opportunities to work on different projects and touch on different aspects of accounting, which is why it's considered a really great stepping stone. So a lot of people spend 2 to 4 to 5 years at these companies, and then they move on to whatever else that they're interested in after going through and learning about all the aspects of accounting. And of course, these big four accounting firms started out as providing accounting services, but it has evolved and grown into more of a of professional service firms. So offering accounting, auditing, consulting, implementation work in different areas. So it's not just accounting work anymore, but the main bread and butter is accounting. So it's still considered as they're accounting firms. Right. So what is an IT auditor? So when I was in college, I really had no idea what an auditor was, even though I was studying accounting. And then when I graduated, or before I graduated, I wasn't aware that the job IT auditor even exists. So even now, when I tell people that I was or I am an IT auditor, people will be like, what does that even mean? What does that even mean? That doesn't really offer them any additional insight into what I actually do. So for those who don't know, an IT auditor essentially looks at an IT system, an HR, financial, accounting, data processing system, any types of system really, and determine what guidance is applicable and what are the best security practices that we should kind of look for those systems. So we then identify the security controls that those systems must meet based on the types of systems they are and the risk that it has to the organization. We then talk to the system owners and conduct certain types of testing that confirms the effectiveness of the control to mitigate the certain security risk. So, for example, one of the most common security risks is giving people more access than they need to perform their job function. So we talk to the system owner to determine if there's a process in place to reduce the risk of that happening. That can be a manual check or an automated check. It can be preventative or detective. So a preventative control would be, having a manager reviewing and signing off on the access request, or the system automatically graying out the roles within the system so that additional access cannot be granted based on the job title that person has. And a detective control would, be a quarterly review of the access granted or an automatic report that can be run to identify the specific roles that don't align to the person and whether or not those roles are granted to that person. Again, this role is very much so compliance related within the security world. So the security world is, a small portion of the IT world. So it's just like a subgroup of the security roles. Yeah. So moving on. All right. So my current role is a project manager. Again, people not in the field will also ask me, what is a project manager? So I just joke when I don't want to answer their question of what I actually do. I just say, I manage projects. What more do you want me to say? But this is actually, it's true. It doesn't really answer the question that they're looking for, but it is true. I just manage projects. So what does that actually mean? It is essentially you just spark and execute project plan to meet project goal within the defined timeline, right? So you try to get that project from beginning to end, working with different teams to make sure that things get done and then unblock them if they are blocked by anything. So the projects that I manage at Amazon are very also compliance and security risk focused as well. Okay, so here's a very elementary graphical representation of what I did at EY and then what I am doing now at Amazon. So on the left here, you see that, it's, external IT auditor. On the right, you see the internal compliance team at Amazon. And then towards the bottom, you see the internal security subject matter expert at Amazon. So when I was at EY, I was essentially going to different companies. My role was more so related to the federal space, so I went to different organizations, federal organizations. But going to organizations, companies, and essentially working with their internal compliance team to understand the systems that we need to test, and then we then also talk to the internal security SME to then learn more about the system, learn more about how things should work, and then based on that, we design the controls that we need to test, and then we request information from the internal compliance team, and then the internal security SME to determine whether or not the way that the control is designed is effective to mitigate the risk, like I said earlier. So right now, so obviously I was on the left doing the external IT auditing stuff. So right now my role is towards the right, the internal compliance team. So essentially I work with similar organizations like EY, and essentially work with the internal security SME as well. So all of that, I'm essentially just internal compliance team, but doing projects that would help the external IT auditor or help the internal security SME or help my internal compliance team. So various projects. My main role for the past 2 years have been essentially managing the projects that allow services to go through or AWS services to go through an assessment so that it can be approved by the FedRAMP regulators, which is the regulation or the guidance for cloud services and cloud security providers. All right, so moving on, difference between big tech and big accounting. So again, this is very much from my perspective for my 5 years that I was at EY and for my 2 years that I'm at Amazon now. It was it's based on my perspective in the role that I was at EY and the role that I currently have at Amazon. I cannot speak for all of EY and I cannot speak for all of Amazon because that's impossible. There's so many different organizations, groups, and teams within each of the companies that it's hard to capture everything. But this is my best at it based on my experience. So role expectation, at EY, it's a very top-down organization. So you have, the staff that essentially are straight out of college, and they usually have an accounting background or an information system background. But, there are cases where they don't even have any of those, and they're just interested in public accounting or it's a stepping stone into the consulting and professional service world. And then after staff, you get senior. This senior has about 2+ years of experience. As a senior, you are managing multiple staff, training them because even though, for staff, you're straight out of college and you learn a lot from there, but the working world is just completely different. So the staff has a lot of learning to do. So seniors are there to kind of help the staff through the process. And senior has a little more experience, so they can help and they can also understand, how to explain it to the staff because they were there about 2 years ago. As a senior, you are responsible for more aspects of the project and you oversee more staff. Then as a manager who usually has 5+ years of experience, you are responsible for every aspect of the project and oversee more staff and seniors. And then as a senior manager, which usually has about 8 years of experience, you are likely overseeing more projects and provide guidance to managers to deliver on those projects. You will mostly interact with seniors and managers and then report up to partners. And then as a partner, you're overseeing multiple projects, but you're not in the weeds as much. And you are the main owner and ultimately responsible for growing that account or that business account so you can bring more money to the organization. And partner is a very, relationship and sales type of role. But once you make it to senior manager, kind of which route you're kind of working towards based on your conversations with your mentor and the partners you work with at the organization. But once you make it to partner at big accounting, you've made it. That's like almost 13 to 15 years of working really, really hard towards partnership. And this is a big, big milestone. Not to say that, all the other promotions are not big milestones, but partners is like you made it. Congratulations, big, boom, everything at big accounting. So then at Amazon, the role expectation. It's a semi-flat organization. That doesn't mean that, you know, it's completely flat, but it just means that just because you're at certain level doesn't mean that you're only reporting to the next level, or that you can only work with or talk to or engage with other teams at different levels. Right here you can see we go by L4s, L5s, L6, L7, L8s, and plus. So L4s are usually straight out of college as well. L5s are usually 2+ years of experience. L6 are usually 5+ years of experience. And those are average, but there's plenty of people within the organization that are at L5s for 10+ years, and that's completely okay. So people in the L5 role has more experience, and they do more of the day-to-day work and learning about the technical aspects. So if someone doesn't want to do a certain type of role within Amazon, they can move throughout Amazon every 6 months in your role, so that you can learn more about different aspects of Amazon. So sometimes people will stay at L5 for years, and that's completely okay, and sometimes people prefer that. And then L6 is usually 5+ years of experience. Again, this is 5. So L5s have a lot of experience, and these numbers 2+ years or 5+ years are very much so like the base requirement, and that's not the reality. There's plenty of people that are L5s that have 10+ years of experience. There's plenty of L6 that have 10-15 years of experience. These are just the base requirement for the role during the hiring process, but that does not mean that that's the reality. And then L7 is senior manager, and L8s are directors and beyond. So there's really no like you made it type of big accomplishment the way that at big accounting, once you're at partner, you've made it, right? It's essentially based on your projects and what you're interested in. So a lot of people don't really make it to L7 or L8s or beyond, but it's the learning experience that you have access to. So day-to-day at big accounting and big tech, neither of these roles are going to be your standard 9-to-5 role. At EY, depending on the level, I would have team meetings, client-specific meetings, client reporting, internal management reporting, conducting walkthroughs of the control with the security SME, developing documentation based on walkthroughs, and performing controls testing. So depending on the project, we have standard busy season based on the client's deadline and the guidance standard reporting deadline. And then depending on the level, you can either potentially be working on multiple projects. Along with your day-to-day work, you can participate in additional extracurricular projects or business development work as well. So a lot of meetings, a lot of writing, and performing testing. And then at Amazon, you'll be attending and conducting any meetings necessary to accomplish your project's objective. So meeting with internal and external teams, you'll also be managing multiple projects that are deadline driven. So you can, get involved in pretty much anything you want to get involved here at Amazon. There's no requirement to be involved and do extracurricular, but if this is something that you're passionate about, it's kind of encouraged that you get involved. Right. So done with the day-to-day stuff. This is the juicy stuff, right? The career growth and promotion track at big accounting versus big tech. So at big accounting firms like EY, there's usually a very standard timeline for promotion. The promotion process is usually once a year, but some firms have opportunities for mid-year promotion now. For EY, feedback from the level above you in the team you work with is really critical for your promotion to the next level. So while not required for a promotion to senior, achieving your main certification early in your career helps a lot. So depending on the role, it is required for you to achieve a relevant certification to be promoted to manager. So the expected time frame usually is, staff. You spend about 2 years doing the staff type work, and then you get promoted to senior. You do that for 3 years, and then you get promoted to manager. And managers here is a little harder to get to senior managers because you have to demonstrate that you are not only able to execute projects and manage people, you are able to interact and develop relationships with the client as well. So managers, it takes 3+ years before you move to the senior manager role, which then, it will take 5+ years before you are able to move to the next level, which is partners or directors. And then for Amazon, there's really no set time frame for promotion. Like I mentioned earlier, you can spend 2 years at L5 and try and go for promotion, or you can spend 10 years at an L5 and you can stay there as long as you want, as long as you are performing at your level in the role that you have. There's no I guess, here the standard, you spend 5 years at EY or at big accounting, you should have made it to manager. There's no such thing like that at Amazon. It's really just, your self-motivation. And then promotions are data-driven, meaning you have to be able to talk through what you've accomplished and whether how you accomplished those align with leadership principles at Amazon. For promotions, it happens more than once a year, at least for my organization. It's every quarter, but that may not be true within the whole Amazon. And so feedback from other colleagues outside of your team is much more important than within your team. It's not just about getting good feedback from the people above you within your team, but also people in various other teams that you work with and their experience in working with you. And so the way that Amazon, or especially my organization, does promotions is just is data driven, right? So it's based off of the things you've accomplished. We call them wins, and then whether or not you can align, your traits and your accomplishments can align with the leadership principles here at Amazon. Okay, so onto what I learned at EY. EY gave me a really great foundational skill set to be a good working professional in any environment. The client-facing role allowed me opportunities to refine my writing and speaking skills. The role allowed me to manage projects which required time management and people management as well. But one of the main things I learned is my working style. I can critically think better and make better decisions once I have all the details. So I learned that one of my main strong point is my detail-oriented nature. And so I use that to my advantage, and then and that's been really, really helpful in my career. And then EY is very much so a people-focused organization, so you get a lot of opportunities to learn about your management style, which helps you understand why and how you do things a certain way and why other people do things a certain way or a different way, and why that different may not be wrong. It's just a different way of working. So being able to learn that about myself at EY has been super helpful, just to understand myself and the people I work with as well. Okay, so on to the next thing, which is what got me to Amazon. A lot of people like to know why I wanted to transition from EY to Amazon. Like I mentioned earlier, my working style is more directed towards knowing the details in order to critically think and make decisions. When I was a manager at EY, the next step was senior manager. As you move up the ladder at EY and other accounting firms, the more business and sales oriented you become, and you rely on your team to make the technical calls. So I was not ready for that because I felt like there was so much more that I did not know. So in order to be good at the next level, I needed to expand my horizon and be more technical, especially in emerging technologies like the cloud. So with HQ2 popping up in Arlington, Virginia, I thought Amazon would be a good place to look into. So that's kind of how I started looking. But what got me to Amazon was really nothing special, and is probably how most people get to Amazon and other similar companies, right? So learn what you can at your current role, make the most out of it, study your butt off for the interview, and smash the interview. So essentially just being able to demonstrate how you can add value to the organization during the interview. So one of the other things that I think helped me was that I knew people that worked at Amazon that could kind of shed light on the process and what they're looking for. Those people that I used to work at EY who kind of knew my performance at EY. So there's some goodwill there, but essentially this really only helps with getting your resume looked at. But at the end of the day, you still have to perform well in the interview process, because you are being interviewed by 5-6 other people that are not within your organization or not within your team. So it's not really helpful that you have goodwill with certain people. You just have to also demonstrate and convince other people within that process that you can perform at Amazon. All right, so some little information about interviewing at Amazon. So usually it starts out with a phone screen, a 1-hour phone call, whether it's because the recruiter reached out to you through LinkedIn or whether or not you submit your resume through the process. So it starts with a phone screen where they determine whether your experience and skill set are a fit for the organization and the role. So after you get through and you pass that one phone screen, you get moved to the next round, which is the loop interviews. And so the loop interviews is the one that usually pre-pandemic it would be on site. So you would go to either Seattle or HQ2 to do the 5 to 6 1-hour interviews with 5 to 6 individuals. This process is very formal and important process. We take it really seriously here at Amazon, and all of the interviewers that are involved in this process goes through training just so that we provide the candidates a standardized approach to how we hire. And then the interviews are really focused on leadership principles, and usually you're expected to provide your responses in a STAR format, meaning situation, task, action, and then result, right? So you have to give specific examples that align to leadership principles at Amazon. For example, let's say one of the leadership principles at Amazon is deliver results. So they will ask you questions about, tell me about a time when you were able to deliver a result based on a short timeline, and what happened, what did you do, why was it like that, and then what was the result. So a lot of follow-up questions just to understand what the situation was, what was the task you were assigned, what was the action that you performed, and what was the result of your actions. And then after that, obviously, based on your performance, they debate that internally and then provide you with an offer or not after about 5 days, 5 business days. All right, so transitioning to Amazon. It was a very interesting transition for me because I started 2 months before the pandemic hit. So my experience is going to be different from those, in previous years that started and met their teams on site, or people who are starting now who are essentially just working from home straight from the beginning. So Amazon still operates like a startup, meaning that you can just look at your role, you'll learn as much as you can about your role in your organization, and then if there's a gap or there's something that you're like, oh, I think we need this within our organization, we need a new tool, we need a new process, we need a new role, whatever it is, then you can pretty much get that started, as long as you have the right buy-in from your leadership. So how Amazon works is, they're very writing focused. So you write a doc outlining the purpose, the problem, the solution, and the proposed way to get to the solution. And then from there, if it's a good idea and you have your stuff all thought out, then you can get started working on that. So that's why I say it's a very startup-like culture. A lot of times, I would say 2 months or so, it's of the initial, when I first started, is just getting used to the role and getting used to not being the external IT auditor anymore, but I'm getting used to the being an internal compliance role at a company, where I need to help the company improve, rather than just saying, hey, these are processes that don't work, and then leave it at that, which is what usually external auditors do. So at Amazon, there's single-threaded ownership. So if you are managing this project, then you're the only person managing that project. Of course, you will have help from contractors and other team members, but you are the person that people are going to point to if they have specific questions about a certain subject matter. And then again, it's a single-threaded ownership. So this is your project, this is your baby. You need to do what you have to do to get what you need done. And so whether it's putting up meetings, having meetings with different stakeholders, external, internal, writing a doc, creating knowledge-based sources, anything really to get your project to be as smooth as possible. Okay, so I think that's pretty much the end of my talk. I am going to allow time for Q&A so that I can answer any questions that viewers may have that I have not, offer insight throughout the talk. Thank you so much.